Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In previous videos we have talked about two of the Hisuian starters and how well they would fare in VGC Gen 9, potentially. And today is going to be the third one, which is Typhlosion. And as always, this is speculation. We have no idea if this thing is 100% confirmed for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but there is a very good chance this will be in the game. So let's get into it. Typhlosion Hisuian form is Fire and Ghost instead of Fire, which is a fairly okay typing. You have 6 super effectives, which is really pretty decent. Nothing special, and you do have nothing that resists both of your stabs. No single typing anyway. So you will at least get some consistent damage across the board. Defensively, weak to 5 things, not amazing, but also not too bad. And also resist 6 typings. And some of those are actually really popular VGC typings, like Steel and Fire. And of course you get Ghost typings to immunities, which is always nice to have. The quarter damage from Bug is not really a significant factor here, because Bug is not, it's not a great offensive typing. So most people don't really run Bug moves. But you never know, there could be a Bug type that's really strong and just has an overpowered Bug move, in which case that 4 times resist would be very useful. Okay, moving on to abilities, it's the same as the original, which is Blaze and Flash Fire. I would highly recommend running Flash Fire because that gives your team a fire immunity switch-in, which is honestly a pretty nice thing to have if you're going against like a Charizard and you just expect it to Heat Wave. That you can switch this on it and it'll take no damage, and then your fire type moves are boosted. So it's a pretty decent ability to have around. It's definitely more useful than the other two Hisuian forms abilities. Alright, moving on into stats, we do see a considerable change in special attack. So it is lower speed, but 119 special attack, that is really high for a starter. Which I think that's one of the highest starter special attacks in the game, which will play very nicely into some of the moves that Typhlosion gets and the Hisuian form should still have access to. And no, I would not recommend using this as a defensive mon. Its defense stats are like good enough, like most starters, but you're mostly gonna want to use this offensively. And on the special attack stat side, because you have 35 more special attack than you do physical attack, that's a big jump. Okay, signature move is Infernal Parade, which is 60 power and has a 30% burn chance, which is actually pretty high. But the move's power doubles if the target has a status. And just looking at that, I can already see a setup where if you pair this with something that has Will-O-Wisp or Thunderwave, especially Thunderwave for speed control, something like Grimmsnarl with Thunderwave, you could just Thunderwave a target and you get a 120 power ghost move into that target. That's actually a pretty decent setup that you can do there. And it's almost brain dead, honestly. And Grimmsnarl can kind of cover the dark weakness with its fairy typing and Spirit Break, so I'm already seeing some good synergy. Now, if you look back at the original Typhlosion, the main thing this thing is used for is Eruption, which is a very strong fire move. And it is very likely that the Hisuian form will also have Eruption, which if so, you're definitely running Eruption on this thing almost all the time. This also gets your typical good ghost moves like Shadow Ball and Hex, which if you are running this with something that has, say, Thunderwave or Will-O-Wisp, something else that can inflict statuses, you actually would not run Infernal Parade most likely. You would instead want to run Hex because you do have higher damage out of it, even though you are giving up that 30% burn chance. But depending on how you're set up, that might not be necessary at all. And keep in mind, in PLA, the effect chance of like statuses is a little different than VGCs. So it could drop down to like 20%. when it's actually in Gen 9, which would probably be another reason why you'd want to run Hex. It's a better option for a team. Now, one thing I've noticed about Typhlosion and its moveset, it doesn't really get coverage. A lot of its coverage is on the physical side, which you're probably not going to be running any physical moves on this thing. So you have almost no coverage at all. The original does have access to Solar Beam, which the Hisuian form will probably also get, which that will cover water and ground. But that's the only thing this thing can cover by itself. So I've already been alluding to a build where you just have Eruption and Hex or Infernal Parade, depending on how you're set up. And I could really see a Choice Scarf build with this. You could also do a Calm Mind build with this. So lead it with like a Fake Out support and try to set up Calm Mind and then start sweeping. And if you're running like a Scarf or a Spec build, I would probably put Mystical Fire on this, just so you have a way to lower special attacking, in case it's not in a very good spot for doing damage. But Choice Scarf Eruption is always a good option. Or Choice Specs if you have it with speed control. Which, like I said, if you're pairing this with Grimmsnarl that has Thunder Wave, this thing could be highly effective with both Hex and Eruption. And you could also run Heat Wave as a more consistent spread fire move, and Blast Burn if you're just trying to go for a one-shot. So what does this thing struggle against? Probably its biggest threat in VGC is going to be Incineroar, mostly because it really can't hit Incineroar, and Incineroars are very defensive, so they're just going to take Typhlosion's hits very well and just take it out with a dark move pretty quickly. Since your defensive stats are not amazing, it probably does not take much attack investment for Darkest Lariat to one-shot Hisuian Typhlosion. But what I think this goes really well into is something that's been dominating Gen 8 VGC, and that is Zacian. Because the only moves that Zacian runs, this thing is either immune to or resist. And if you're pairing this with a speed control Grimmsnarl, then all you have to do is connect the Thunder Wave onto Zacian, and then this will outspeed it, which is very scary because it has Eruption, and that's going to do a ton of damage to Zacian. Which, running a few calculations with the original Typhlosion, which has 10 less special attack, it is a roll to knock out Zacian with a full power Eruption, if you're not boosting the special attack nature, and if the Zacian has no special defense or HP EVs. But the Hisuian form has 10 higher special attack, and most Zacians have special defense EVs. So it's going to balance out a little bit. But if you're running Life Orb, then they will need considerable special defense investment to not get one-shotted. And I don't actually think it can live a Specs full power Eruption from Typhlosion. So I think that matchup alone gives it a lot of viability in VGC. That's assuming those legendaries will come into Gen 9 VGC eventually like they did in Gen 8. So overall, I think this is the most viable Hisuian starter. It has a great matchup into a top tier, and just has a very strong moveset in general, mostly because of Eruption. Pretty much anything with Eruption is good. Torkoal even runs it, and it's very slow. It's much better on something fast. So I predict you're going to be seeing this a fair amount, and it may not be in every team, but it will be a good counterpick, especially in a meta where there are restricted legendaries like Zacian. But even without, you can just Choice Scarf Eruption and blow stuff up with this. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.